I'm going to teach you a strategy that gives most players instant results for climbing by making League 10 times easier and way more understandable. A problem I try to help teach in League is that most high-low advice is very simple and effective, but most players don't teach you the minor details for actually making it work. For example, how many times have you heard advice like, you need to push out side lane waves and then rotate while your opponent defends, or blah blah blah. Meanwhile, if you leave your team alone for a single moment in solo queue, they all kind of just die, right? I made a video a while back addressing that side laning issue and what allows challenger players to go push lanes without their teams immediately inting. And in this video, I'm going to be doing the exact same thing for power spikes. This is technically one of the simplest concepts in League. If you base and you got a big item, go fight. But no one teaches you what actually goes into it, because sometimes when you base, you feel like a god, and sometimes you go into a fight and you immediately die. So we're going to cover the actual details you need to understand about power spikes, and then I'm going to give you one of the easiest methods to predict your gold income minutes in advance, letting you always be ready to win fights every single game. To begin, I'm going to give you the most obvious trick question of all time. If you had a choice between having either Kraken Slayer and boots, or the same inventory with a couple of extra daggers, which would you choose? The clear answer is the one with more daggers, but you're actually far more likely to lose a fight with that inventory in a real game. And that's because, obviously, power spikes are always relative to your opponent's own spikes. If you take a recall, you are easing tension on the map, which likely means your opponent also got to base and buy their own items. So you need to make sure that the items you bought are better than the items your opponent picked up. To do that, you always want to consider component quality and completion timing. For example, if you play AD champions, you guys know that when you base and buy pickaxe and longsword, oh yeah, you're about to go back to lane and deal big damage. It's just a base timer that feels really good. On the other hand, if you buy something trash like Caulfield's Warhammer, you might feel weaker when you get back to lane. And that's because your opponent bought Tunneler, Warden's Mail, or Tabeyes. So yes, you got stronger, but relative to your opponent, you got weaker. This is important to do for your main champion picks. You always want to think about what components or items feel really good for the specific character that you play. Stuff like Glowing Moat, Bandle Glass, Sapphire Crystal tend to be really low quality, whereas Long Swords, BF Swords, Ruby Crystals, Lost Chapter type of stuff tends to be the most premium components you can pick up. It all depends on your specific champion though. You can go pretty extreme with this knowledge. What I'm about to cover, you don't have to think about in a real game or overthink it. I'm just going to overanalyze the bases of a specific matchup and then give you a super simple concept that will make everything really easy. Let's imagine an Ahri versus a Ryze lane. Let's say that they recalled while they both had 800 gold. Ahri might buy like Amptome plus Darkseal, meanwhile Ryze would buy Tear plus Ruby Crystal. Even though they spent the same amount of gold, Ryze would be way happier in the matchup and he'd be winning the lane currently because his component quality is better for his champion. Instead, let's go back in time and say that they laned until 1200 gold. Ahri based and got Lost Chapter, while Ryze got Tear plus double Ruby. In that case, Ahri would be super happy and would likely win the lane because Lost Chapter is obviously an insanely good early item. But let's say that they base after that with around 500 more gold. Ahri would pick up maybe Darkseal and some pots, while Ryze finished his Catalyst. Now Ryze would be hard winning again. This is what you always need to remember. It's not about what you buy, it's what you buy compared to what your opponent is likely going to purchase as well. This matters for completed items too. Top laners, I want you to think about this. How many games have you gone back to lane having finished Eclipse or something and you feel like a god? You just begin destroying the 1v1 and it feels like you can't lose. This is likely because you finished Eclipse while your opponent is still sitting on components. But then, how many times have you gone back to lane with something like Eclipse and a longsword and you just feel kind of mediocre? That's because that extra 300-400 gold likely let your opponent finish their own item, so you're about even in strength. Now, I don't want you to stress that you have to overthink your recalls depending on what your opponent can buy relative to you to win your games though. You just needed to understand everything we covered so that the following rule makes sense and you will notice your power spikes feeling way more consistent. The golden rule for power spikes is that the more exact your gold is on buying your ideal component or full item, the less likely it is that your opponent will ever be stronger than you. Okay, let's say you're playing an ADC and you base on exactly 1300 gold for a BF sword. Then you're against an Ezreal who also got Tear plus Sheen with his 1300 gold. In terms of component quality, that's about as good of a base as both of you could get, so you're about even in strength. But it's not guaranteed that Ezreal got a perfect base, even if you did. He might have come back with worse components than you. Basically, they can either match you you or do worse. Your opponent can never do better than you because you based at a perfect time. This matters a lot in early lane when buying components, but also anytime you base for an actual completed item. Here's a real example from one of my games. I'm basically even in gold against the enemy Cassiopeia, but I base on exactly enough gold to buy Eclipse. This means that her base can never be better than mine, it can only be worse. And I'd say right now, compared to what she bought, I'm actually favored in fights. So a little later, I'm playing super aggressively in the river, knowing that I'm for sure way stronger than her. To be clear, everything I'm discussing is if you're even in gold against your opponents. But that's not always going to be the case. Sometimes you're behind and sometimes you're ahead. And everything I discuss in this video will be way more effective if you've managed to build a lead in the first place, which is why we spent countless hours building our Season 16 Essentials courses for every role. Rather than just giving you that same generic big picture advice you hear everywhere else, we focus on the exact details that actually enable you to build leads in your games. From the trading secrets and recall timings that can instantly win you lane, to the wave management tricks challengers abuse to create leads out of nothing, all the way to the mid and late game macro decisions that most players get completely wrong. Each of these courses are built by challenger players and coaches like myself with decades of experience behind them, designed to walk you through every stage of the game from start to finish on your chosen role, focusing above all else on practical advice that actually works. And I get it, every coaching service always makes these big promises, so we put our money where our mouth is. If you don't climb 5 divisions while actively using our service, you get every penny back. So if you want to give it a shot, there's an exclusive discount in the description and pinned comment below, which also helps me out and lets me keep making videos like this one. But anyway, back to the guide. Okay, just to remind you, our golden rule is that you want to base with almost exact gold to what you plan on purchasing. Cool. Now that has a very obvious issue. You can't just get the gold you need and then magically say, yep, I'm basing now, see ya. Your opponents aren't going to let you do that. You can't just recall willy-nilly whenever you want. So ideally, you would plan ahead and know exactly when you need to recall so that you can set up a good lane state so you can base without losing too much. To do that, we need to predict our gold income precisely so you know the exact time you're going to base. What you want to think is, how many more waves am I going to play before I need to base? Do I need to play 3 more waves, 4 or 5? And here's how you're going to do that. Most players know that minion waves are worth about 105 gold in total for regular waves, and cannon waves are 155, but they do scale because cannons get more gold as the game goes on or whatever. Anyway, all of that info is completely useless on its own. The problem is that it doesn't account for you missing last hits, which, you know, we're all human, and I know a thing or two about missing cannons, or more importantly, other sources of gold you might earn, the most relevant being passive income. In League, you generate pretty close to 2 gold per second, so in 50 seconds, you're getting 100 gold for free. Now, waves spawn every 30 seconds though, so what we do is take those wave amounts and add 60 gold to them because you had to wait 30 seconds for that wave to arrive in your lane and for you to clear it. So regular waves are worth 165, while cannon waves are worth 215 and up, but those numbers are pretty messy to work with. Instead, you should lower them a bit to 150 and 200, which are way easier to deal with. But by lowering them to these numbers, you're also accounting for missing last hits. None of us are perfect, you're gonna mess up some CS every now and then. So with these values, it's very easy to predict exactly how many waves you have to stay in lane to get your perfect spike. Let's say I was 600 gold off of my item. Now I know exactly how many waves I need to stay in lane for. So okay, 150, another 150 is 300, there's a cannon wave every 3 waves, so that's another 200. Okay, I need 1 more wave, 4 waves total, and I'll have my item. Or maybe during that time I got a random turret plate, so now I can take those 4 waves down to 3, and that's how I'm gonna get my item. Okay, let's look at some actual gameplay examples. I'm on Galio, we just had a bit of a poor fight, but more importantly, I'm sitting on some really mediocre components. This is what I mentioned before. I have Null Magic, Bamiya Cinder, it's all just kinda meh. My completed item costs 1500 gold. I'm missing a little over 300 to make that happen. So with a little basic math, I know that I need about 2 waves to base at a proper time. So I get to lane, I miss a last hit here, that's fine. Next wave, notice how without hesitation, I start trading all of my health away. I already know I'm basing, so I don't need to be stingy on my HP. I can trade it all away and get a good lane state so that I can recall. One final bit of numbers I'm gonna throw your way is that, remember how I said that the 150 and 200 gold values account for you missing CS and stuff like that? They also account for you actually recalling. So here, I have to walk back for about 5 seconds to find a safe spot to base. Then I recall for 8 seconds. Then maybe I take a few seconds healing the fountain. Basically, recalls are like a 15-20 second process, and you're usually going to generate around 30 gold. So even if you missed a minion or two in those waves, that extra 30 gold might help you get to your full item. So you can see with just a bit of planning, I got to base with exactly enough gold for my Hollow Radiance. Like I said, that's a really good sign. You're likely going to be very strong whenever you base like this. With the spike, we get some action around mid lane. Galio and Hollow Radiance is just kind of nice. You instantly shell waves, so you always have prio. My Bard was playing around me. We almost got a kill. Could have been better, but not bad. And now let's pause again. I have around 300 gold. Mid laners, you need to listen up here. In general, most games, the most important spike in the match is going to be completed item plus boots for mid laners. This is because the quest system rewards you with a ton of power early into the game with the boots upgrade. So playing around that spike is really important. I'm planning on buying Sorc boots this game. Now think about the value you get every 30 seconds based on minions. How many waves do I have to play here? Exactly 3 more waves is the answer. This is a really nice value to remember because there's a cannon wave every 3 waves. You will always get 500 gold every minute and a half. If you've ever done a cheater recall before, you should kind of already know this. After the first 3 waves of the lane, you get around 500 gold for your first base. So I farm 1 cannon wave, but Victor was still in his base. So I get a turret plate here. This means I can now go from playing 3 waves to maybe only 2. You can actually see me doing the mental math here. I look at my base and see a normal wave. That's about 150 gold with passive income. But remember what I said? You get around 30 gold when you actually step back in lane to recall. So I'm gonna get about 180 gold. And would you look at that? That's exactly how much I need for my Sorc boots. So when the wave comes, look at me. I'm again tanking Victor on purpose, baiting him to waste his spells. The damage he's doing is completely useless and only wasting his tempo. I just focus on the minions, already knowing that I'm getting out of here. And once again, after waiting a few seconds, I buy Sorcs with exactly perfect gold. You can see that Victor and I are basically even in our score, so we have similar gold amounts. But I'm actually planning my bases, so right now I'm much stronger than he is. As I get back to mid, we overkill the guy. He didn't deserve all of that, to be honest. Then after that, my Bard really wants to play around me, so we're gonna push mid and get some plates with him. But remember, I'm on a perfect power spike right now. I really want to fight. So as this Shaco opens up on us trying to defend his tower, I just combo and destroy his health bar. Then I do get a bit greedy after that and combo the Victor instead of just portaling away, so I lose my flash. I do love how stupid I am sometimes, but otherwise things went pretty well. And that is what I want you to remember every single time you base. If you're buying on perfect gold and you're not getting random extra components, that likely means your base is very strong. If you compare my gold to the rest of the enemy team, yes, I'm ahead in this Anivia game, but not by a wide margin. The enemy players have similar CS and kills to me, but because my base is at a really good time, my inventory looks way better than everyone else's does. So a bit later, when a random fight breaks out, I'm going to look very tanky and strong. I survive a full combo to the face, then proceed to deal tons of damage in this fight. And it's all because this was the perfect time in the game for me to fight. You will notice in so many of these examples, I am basing on exact gold amounts. It's something I put a lot of emphasis on when I'm tryharding because it's very rewarding when you do it consistently. If you're always fighting on perfect item spikes, it's far more likely that you're going to win. You're either going to be super tanky or deal a lot of damage relative to your opponents since their bases weren't as good as yours. But that does bring us to one final issue. You're not always going to get the perfect base. From time to time, you will buy awkwardly. There's no way to avoid this. I'm sitting on a Bandle glass mirror. That's about as bad as it gets right now. This doesn't mean that you're weak though, or that you can't fight or whatever. You can still play normal League of Legends. I don't want you to think that the only thing that matters is getting a pixel perfect recall. As a quick rant, I almost died here, by the way. How? To what? I remember raging about how broken Mel is, and watching it back, I'm still kind of pissed off. It's crazy that if her R goes off, I would have just died. Anyway, you're gonna take awkward bases where you buy and you only get a mediocre component and it's not a clean spike. It's gonna happen. One thing I tell players is to only only take good fights on these bases. You should follow other fundamentals and only fight on very obviously good terms. Unlike the other examples in this video where I've been on a good spike and I've been brute forcing more plays, I would urge you to slow the game down and play mostly for a clean angle. So a good example of that would be during the Sylas game. I roamed down and got a free kill here in bottom, then I stuck around, pushed the wave, and then I recalled. You can see that based on my gold, I can only really buy Sheen, which is a trash component for Sylas. My champion really wants Amptomes and Blasting Wands. This is a really bad base timer. That's a concept I teach to a lot of ADC players specifically because they tend to have a lot of trash components in their initial builds, like Crit Cloak. That is a completely worthless component. So for example, let's say you got double killed and lost lane in bot. You at least managed to buy a BF sword, but your opponent is 600 gold ahead and got a scout slingshot. That is a bad component. So I teach ADC players to fight on that timer. Even if you're behind, you have decent odds of making a comeback by fighting while your opponent is still on mediocre stats. Or if you're the ADC that's ahead, I would tell them to not get overconfident even though they're winning. They're actually not that much stronger. Instead, play the lane slow and look to base on your completed item. That way, even though we're still only 600 gold ahead, that 600 gold is way more effective once it's actually turned into a good completed item. And that was my mindset here. I based on a bad component, so I'm effectively down 900 gold, so I don't really want to fight right now. I need 500 gold for my actual Lichbane spike. And if you look at the content creator in me, I'm typing it out for you guys, showing you that I'm planning to play 3 waves and then base and play for my actual spike. So I get back into lane with my plan to play passively for 3 waves. That is until Nunu rolls right into me, tossing my entire game plan away. We have the dumbest fight ever, but you can kind of see what I meant. That was very close despite me being quite far ahead. And it's because I was sitting on a crappy Sheen. Now after that kill, I finally upgrade to my Lichbane, and now Sylas is starting to actually look like Sylas. Very nice and balanced. Thank you, Riot Games. And a quick reminder, everything I covered here is just one single concept from our laning chapter in our Season 16 Essentials courses for every role. Each course is designed to walk you through every stage of the game on your chosen role from start to finish. From the exact trading and recall timers you need to dominate lane, to the mid-game macro decisions 99% of players are getting completely wrong, all the way to the team fighting tips and tricks challengers abuse to always deal the highest damage possible. So whether you're a top laner in the most unfavorable matchup possible, a mid laner having to deal with everybody in your lane 24/7, a jungler trying to balance ganking with farming, an ADC stuck trying to hard carry with a support who just exists to grief you, or a support that's struggling to hard carry games on your own, our Essentials courses are tailor-made to focus on the exact concepts that actually matter for climbing, on your role in your elo. Check them out today completely risk-free, using the link in the pinned comment or the description below. And that's all there is to playing around power spikes properly. If you follow these steps, I promise you will feel like you improved so much so quickly. First, think about what components or item completions actually make your champion feel way stronger. 2. Follow the golden rule. Always try to base on exact gold amounts so it's more likely your spike is stronger relative to your opponents. Then 3. Use the 2 values we learned to predict how much gold you'll have after each wave. It's very easy to think 1 or even 2 minutes in advance with these simple numbers. And finally, if you do happen to get a mediocre base, it's often worth considering playing slowly if you need to and waiting for a better base timer where you got a cleaner power spike. Anyway, that's going to be it for this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time.